Welcome to the Vulnerable Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Almeida. Each week, we'll share the inspiring story of someone who has faced their share of vulnerability and been able to find success and fulfillment. We hope all our stories will help you find the strength within yourself to live the life you want and find success of your own. Rod Laver said, "The time your game is most vulnerable is when you're ahead. Never let up." This is episode 20 of the Vulnerable Podcast with Mark Brazil. His childhood was great. He had amazing and supportive parents and never really experienced anything out of the norm. School would tell him that he wasn't the smartest kid, and at one point he was even tested for ADD. He knew deep down inside that he was intelligent, but just didn't know how to apply it. In his teen years, he began to realize that life won't just happen for you. After not being put on the player watch list for the local soccer club in his senior year of high school, he realized hard work was necessary for getting the results he wanted. This would present itself again when he pledged for his fraternity in college. Moving forward, accountability and hard work became his key focuses to start producing the results he wanted. In his 20s, he took a lead certification course, simply to prove to himself that he could do something he knew nothing about. Now he considers himself a lifelong learner and entrepreneur who is passionate about inspiring and motivating others through stories. He's the co-founder of Ikonick, a high-quality canvas art company using their art and stories to inspire, and this week they're releasing their own podcast called Blank Canvas. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to get vulnerable with Mark Brazil. Hey, Mark, thank you for coming on the Vulnerable Podcast. I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you're a busy guy, and so I appreciate you taking the time to come on. My connection with you on Instagram has been huge for me. It's helped me think of things a lot differently and look at my own life a lot differently. So again, just appreciate you in general and appreciate you coming on.
I appreciate those words, man. Still to this day, anytime anybody says that, each and every person, it means more than anything. And words like that is what keeps me going. So I appreciate you, man.
Thanks. So the first question I like to ask all my guests is, what is your definition of vulnerability?
I would say it's just being your true, authentic self. And I would just say it's being your true, authentic self. And for me, I probably started being more vulnerable about 2 years ago when I hired a 20-year-old kid who immediately, his first day upon working with us, he started seeing who he had access to. And on the first week of the job, he came to us to meet Gary Vaynerchuk, who's now our partner. And it was him that kind of pushed us to start filming our lives. And we had a web series for about a year and a half. And that was kind of where I really started, just, for lack of better terms, really not giving a fuck and just kind of telling everybody really what it is, and exposing my weaknesses and my failures. And I've seen just sharing my failures has inspired so many people like you. So I think it's just being your true, authentic self, and ultimately not really caring what other people think, and just sharing what's really going on in your life. That's what I think.
Well, every definition is different, and then that's sort of the point of this is to have everybody that listens look at things in a different way, and they might relate to your definition or somebody else's. But I appreciate them all. So, and I actually really enjoy the fact that they're all different, because if everybody's is the same, this would be really, really boring. So, what would you say, thinking back, what would you say is like your earliest memory of facing some sort of vulnerability or struggle in your life?
I would say for me, growing up, I really didn't have much hardship. I was super blessed. I had a great mom and dad. My sister's a year older than me. She did well in school. She was a big soccer player, as was I. I really wouldn't say, I always look back, to my childhood through going up to college. My one defining moment was when, being a pretty decorated player on the club scene for soccer. I was going into my senior year. I wasn't put on the player to watch list, and there was people that were in every other, list, league, and team. They were below me. They were put on that list, and I wasn't. So that was for me just a really big moment in my life where I was like, wow, I got to get my shit together, and not be a guy that was wasted talent, because up until then, I really don't think I put in the work that was needed to get the results that I wanted. So I would say that was a big moment for me. And then when I pledged my fraternity my sophomore year in college, I thought I was a tough guy, and then I learned I wasn't a tough guy. And that was a really big moment for me where I really learned a second time in my life really about accountability and working hard. And if you work hard, what the results are at the end and how it can affect your life. So I would say just soccer and my fraternity were my two big early moments in my life.
So in terms of the soccer one, like what would you say you did to overcome that? Like was it just working harder simply, or was there more to it that sort of brought you to that realization and then got you to sort of, like you said, get to where you wanted to be in sort of in soccer?
It was just working harder, man. I think the solution to every problem in life is just working harder and just putting in the work. People don't want to put the work in. I mean, I was never a runner, and I remember for college soccer, they had something called the Cooper test. And one of the elements of it, there was all different elements. There was speed, agility, flexibility. And one of them was, you had to run 2 miles in 12 minutes. And for me, I wasn't a big runner. And I remember that day, it was literally, I was sitting at the kitchen table. I had my normal breakfast. I had a bagel with 5 scrambled eggs with my mom. I was reading the news day. And starting that day, I ran every single day. There was not one day I missed of running. And I just put in the work. It was really that simple. And it was, I remember so many moments, I remember to this day, um, by one of my girlfriend's houses, Joni Kleber, there was a Taco Bell, and all my buddies at the end of the night when we would be drunk, we would go and we'd eat Taco Bell. And I definitively remember that summer, it would be 1:30 in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, my friends would be there and I would be running. And they would see me running like a psycho. All of my friends can tell you, they all remember that. One of my good friends, Eric Gandhi, to this day, we still laugh about that. So it was really just putting in the work. Um, I really think that it's just believing in yourself and putting in the work is the solution to everything. So it was just putting in the work.
Awesome. And I mean, for me, I can't say I have anything exactly like that, but I'm definitely seeing that in my life right now in terms of just like, if you don't put in the work, you don't get the results. This podcast is a great example because, when I started it, I thought, oh, it doesn't look too hard, but there's a lot more to it than you would think. And so I've learned sort of the hard way recently that you have to put in a lot of work for the things that you want. And this is something that I'm trying to get going and trying to grow. And so a great lesson there. So what new strength did you discover in yourself? To me, it sounds like resilience might be something that comes out, but I'll let you sort of speak to that. Like what new strength did you discover from, deciding, to put in that work, going running when nobody else was, or, maybe most people were sleeping. And in fact, what would you say you discovered?
Belief. I mean, it's really, I think that everything is an inside job. You have to believe in yourself before anybody else does. And for me, it's funny. I put on my Instagram story last night, ask me questions because a lot of people DM me business questions. And one of the questions was about self-doubt. And for me, man, I don't have any self-doubt. I'm so confident because I put in the work. I'm very self-aware. I do fewer things really good. And I have this belief that, there's certain pockets in business that, if I need to structure a deal, if I need to go meet somebody and figure out how to optimize the relationship, if I need to go sell something, if I need to figure out, there's all of these little things in biz dev, marketing, sales, relationship, networking that I've been in this situation so many times, and I read all of these books and I study when other people are not studying, that it's just a belief. And I think that when you put in the hard work, then you're going to have no self-doubt and you're going to believe, and people feel and see the belief. It's borderline cocky. It's very confident and I'm confident because I do this. You know what I'm saying? It's like, for me, I always say that, a lot of people get, you know, uh, they're doing speaking engagements and they're up on panels with Q&As. And like, I laugh at the people that like, they need to prepare. What do you need to prepare for? If you're running a business and we're asking business questions, you're going to ask me questions and I'm going to have the answers because it's what I'm doing. So I think it's just doing it has given me belief and all the hard work. It's just all about believing. And I can't stress to you enough that believing in yourself and the energy and being confident is infectious. And that's how you get victories, is my team knows that I'm supremely confident. I'm confident in myself, and I think that it creates confidence for themselves as well. So belief is a big one.
No, definitely. And one thing that I also heard you throw in there was about self-awareness, and that has been a continuous subject that's come up. I mean, I think I've pre-recorded about 30 episodes now, and I would say there's maybe like 5 where somebody hasn't said that. But for the most part, the majority of them, everybody talks about self-awareness, and I guess that sort of ties in with having belief in yourself. And it's something I won't lie, I've been struggling with in my own life recently. And coming from where I came from, I was in sales for 17 years. My wife, who I'm married to now, when I was in college, thought I was a cocky dude, and there was a lot of confidence. But I think a lot of shifts in my life over the last few years have not necessarily dampered it, or however you want to put it. But it's just, I think I'm coming into a new place in my life, and I'm trying to find my way there, and get that confidence and everything that I once had back to where it was before. And what you said there definitely makes a lot of sense, is that if you believe in yourself, and then other people will start to as well, rather than thinking of it the other way around, which is, if I put this content out there, if I do this or if I do that, are people going to believe it? Are people going to care? Rather than worrying so much about that, just put it out there and you'll find the people that will. So that was big for me, to be completely honest, because it's been something I've been struggling with a lot recently.
And for clarity, my confidence and self belief lies in very few categories in life. I'm only good at a couple things, my man. There's a lot of things that there's a fourth grader that's better than me at. You know, I don't even know the difference between there, and than and than. I do the captions on Instagram. There's a lot of misspellings. I mean, there's a lot of things that I'm terrible at. So I think that belief and confidence is aligned with self-awareness. So just know what you're good at, and then just invest all your time and energy into that.
No, definitely. And there's something that, again, something I'm hearing a lot about from people that I've been speaking to and reaching out to, is getting that clarity. And I think I need to spend like a weekend or something just sitting down and being more clear about what I want moving forward, because I've been, a few years ago, I lost my job, and I've sort of been all over the place trying to figure out what's next and where to go. And so I think it's just a matter of really getting that clarity, and then moving forward with it. So, one thing that I sort of wanted to touch on, if it's okay, is when one of the first times that I remember sort of engaging with some of your content and really sort of, I guess, relating to you, was you'd done this post where you put up a picture of your report card,
Yep.
and sort of said, like, look, here's my report card. I wasn't like the top student. Even you're talking about it right now in terms of, grammar and this and that. And so, like, for me, like, would you say that had an effect on you taking getting, because you said it's only been in the last couple of years that you've sort of come into your own and everything like that. So would you say that those things, that like the schools and the report cards and that, would you say that had an effect on it taking that time for you to get there, or was it other things? Like, I'm just curious.
I've been late with everything, man. I was late with soccer. I was late with self-education. I was late with winning. I'm 34 years old. I'm still single. I'm going to be late with a wife and kids. Me and my family always joke about it. I'm late to the game, but I always win the game late. So for me, yeah, I mean, for me, it was more about kind of, inner work and figuring myself out. It got to a point where when I was younger, I don't know how, but I got tested for ADD, and for some crazy, I don't know how, I would get around the tests. And in taking those tests, I took an IQ test, and I know, I have a high IQ, so I knew I was intelligent, but I always did poor in school. So for me, it was more in my early 20s. It was more of a challenge to myself, like kind of the same thing with soccer. Like, I'm supposed to be good, but I didn't make the list. And I'm supposed to be smart, but I did terrible in school. And then that's why I took this certification called Leadership in Energy Environmental Design. It was LEED certified. I took it when I was 21 or 22 years old. I knew nothing about the test. It was about irrigation systems and environmentally friendly practices. I know nothing about that shit. So I was like, hey, I know nothing about this. You know, am I smart? Can I do this? And I failed a couple times, but I did pass it eventually. So doing poorly in school, I think was more of an eye opener for me to challenge myself into, am I really intelligent? Am I not? And I also think, ironically enough, it kind of just like plays into the story as well. It's so crazy, man. We have a podcast as well We've had about 25 guests. And the craziest thing, man, the craziest shit is almost everybody did shitty in school. Of the 25, I would say 23, I would literally say maybe a couple of college degrees. It's crazy. So I said the 25, 23 of them did terrible in school. And every single one of them, everyone came from max middle class or upper middle class. Actually, Jeff, of every single person, came from the most affluent background, and he ended up having a crazy family situation where he actually ended up losing it all and getting it back. But yeah, man, it's crazy. I just think it just plays into the story. But ultimately, it was an eye opener for me and challenging myself. I think everything is about challenging yourself. It's a you versus you game. It's an internal mindset game. And me doing poorly in school just opened myself up to further discovering my true highest form of intellect and intelligence. So that's my answer.
No, and again, it's something that I've seen a lot recently too, where your education and stuff like that doesn't necessarily define like how successful you're going to be or where you're going to end up in life. And I think it's an important thing for our listeners to hear, and that's why I sort of brought it up, because I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that are thinking about, should I go to university, or I went to university and it didn't really do anything for me. I'm one of those people. I spent a few years in college getting a business diploma, and I can't really say that much of it has helped me at this point in my life, especially, where I'm finally deciding to go, in the 17 years I spent in sales. Yeah, sure. Maybe it helped me a bit there, but now I don't even know if sales is what I want to do with my life. I spent a lot of years chasing money and titles and stuff like that. And I'm now coming to the realization that a lot of that stuff doesn't even matter in the grand scheme of things. I mean, sure, we all need money and we all want to pay our bills and we all want to have things. But at the end of the day, if you're not sort of aligned with what's really important in life, I don't feel like any of that stuff can even come, or if it does, it's going to fix anything that's really wrong, if that makes sense.
Everything comes with a grain of salt, but for your listeners, I would say there's a 96% chance, if you're listening, don't go to school. We live in a skills economy, not a job economy, not a resume economy. It's mind blowing, man. I just went to Missouri and we brought along a secondary film guy. He's 24 years old. He's $170,000 in debt from school.
Oh, wow.
Like, what the fuck are you doing, man? You're a video guy.
And how are you going to pay that off?
Go on YouTube and Google and buy a camera. You could buy the best camera in the whole game for $5,000 and sit in front of YouTube for 60 days. It'd probably be better than wasting all that money and going to school for 4 years. That shit blew my mind, man. I don't know if I could curse, but wow, that shit.
No, it's totally fine. And I mean, that blows my mind too, because I've never heard that much money unless you're maybe becoming a doctor or a lawyer, in which case you'll probably pay it back in a few years after you get into your career. And that's really for me.
$45,000 a year or something. It was like the most prestigious private school in California. I was like, I don't know.
But again, like I said, that's for me, I'm sort of the same belief. Unless you want to become, like I said, a lawyer or a doctor or something where you have to have the education, because there's no way around it. You can't become a doctor without, going to school for it. I'm in the same belief as you, where it's like, because I think at the end of the day, a lot of us just go to school or go to university because, how society works. You go to high school and towards the end of high school, they sit you down and they say, what do you want to do with the rest of your life? How the hell am I supposed to know that at 16, 17 years old? And then you sort of come up with a guess and they send you off to university. And then a lot of people finish their 3-4 years and they're like, I don't know what to do now. And then they go get a job, and half the time it's not even aligned with what they did in school. So I'm completely on board with what you said there. Again, like I said, unless you're going to specialize very specifically. So definitely something I would get people to think about, especially after hearing what you just said about 170,000. Like that's a down payment on a house.
Yeah.
At least here in Toronto. I don't know about in LA where you are, but that's an enormous amount of money.
It's something. I pray for you, Nick, if you ever listen to this episode. Sorry, Nick, but yeah.
It's all good.
Yeah.
So everything that you've sort of shared so far, like from the soccer, from school, from everything that just sort of culminated to where you're at now, how would you say all of it helped you get to where you're at now with the Ikonick business, with your personal brand, with everything?
Just learning, man. I think I'm a lifelong learner, and in every single big boss that I've met, they're all lifelong learners, man. It's a passion for being curious and figuring out ways to solve problems and to hone your skills. And usually, like I said before, it's honing less skills, but being world class in those skills. And it's crazy, man. It's the guys that sometimes it's disguised and you don't think so, but for the most part, internally, they have little to no ego, and then they're just spending their whole entire life learning. I mean, every single one of my failures has been a direct derivative of every single one of my successes has been a direct derivative of past failures, and just learning from those failures and actually experiencing it and going through it and just seeing where I made the mistakes and just not making those same mistakes again. That's why school is stupid, because you're not experiencing it. You're reading a book and taking a test. It's the dumbest shit ever. You got to just start early and just get out there. So, yeah, man, it's all about learning and all of those failures. I also think about my failures probably more than most, maybe an unhealthy amount. And I think about them, and it just inspires me to, I still have a chip on my shoulder to still to prove people wrong, and then to prove the people that do believe in me right. So it's just learning. Yeah, for everybody out there, I think that's the most important thing. That, for me, every single day I'm learning an insane amount every single day. I mean,
No,
every single day there's in the background, I'm watching a YouTube video, I'm listening to a podcast. Um, I mean, I'm talking to my team, I'm talking to my business partner. I mean, I'm even learning when I'm going on dates with women. It's like these are like business meetings with these women that I go out with. So just constantly learning.
no, and I agree. I mean, in the last few months, I've started listening to a lot more podcasts than I ever have, and I have learned a lot more than I ever did in school, for sure. And even just reading, because the books that you read in school, it's usually created, by some teacher or something. They, it's the same book every year after year, and you do some sort of study on it, and so on and so forth. But now, as an adult, you obviously choose your own books. And in the last few months, I've read a lot of books on, happiness, on just how your brain works. I read one, I think it was called Buddha's Brain, which you would think was about Buddhism, but it was more just about the whole how your actual brain works, and the thoughts of negative thoughts going into your head, and how stress can affect other parts of your body. And it was just sort of really mind-blowing to me, because I didn't realize that that thing up there is as powerful as it is until you really start to learn more about it. So I agree with you, and you say how important learning is, and that you have to continue learning as you go on. One thing that you did sort of allude to quickly there was you talked about ego, and you talked about how the people, I guess, that you've interviewed, from what it sounded like, sort of don't have an ego. Is that something that you would say it's important to maybe recognize when your ego is taking too much control, or I don't know if you get if you understand what I'm getting at, but I just know that I've heard a lot about this through other podcasts and everything, that the ego is it can be good and it can be bad, but it depends on how you use it.
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes ego gets confused with confidence, or if you're loud and you're brash. You know, I'm referring to a guy named Andy Frisella, who's CEO of First Form. I was just in Missouri with him. I mean, I think about guys like Andy Frisella and Gary, who have, I have very similar speaking styles to them, posting styles to them. I engage similar to them. I'm loud and I'm confident, as are they. But underneath it, we all have the same DNA, where we think we suck. We think that, internally I'm batting a 2 out of 10, a 10 being my highest, most efficient, most powerful form of myself. I need to constantly get better. And I need to know that if I don't continuously get better, then I'm going to get crushed and I'm going to lose. And it's really people. That's a question that I always ask. It's one of the greatest questions that I ask all successful people. And every successful person loves it. I go, how do I fuck this up? I'm sitting with Andy in Missouri. I go, Andy, how do I fuck this up, man? How do I fuck up my life? And his answer actually was, you take your eyes off the prize. He's like, you just, you get lazier, you don't focus, you stop working hard. And that kind of coincides with ego. So I think, I've watched, entrepreneurs go up and then go down. And I would say that ego and focus is the main reason why they fail. And I think ego goes hand in hand with focus, and focus is simply in relation to business, just seeing what the market tells you and adapting accordingly. Like I've been saying for a year and a half, 2 years, our company's mission is to inspire and motivate through storytelling. We're not necessarily an art company. If the whole entire art market washes up, we're not going to sell art anymore. Because I'm not an idiot, because I don't have an ego, and I'm focused on the mission at hand, and I want to win. So I would say ego and focus go hand in hand, and I think a sense of humility, and people are very confused with who has an ego and who doesn't. It's really, really funny. Sometimes it's the quiet ones that actually have the ego. That's what I've realized in life. So that's my 2 cents on it.
No, and that's it's really interesting what you said there when you said about like how, the people that would look at somebody like you or Gary Vee or any of these people that we from the, following them on social, we look at them as like super successful and everything, got everything going for them, and life's perfect for them. And then you're saying to me on the inside or on your side of things, it's not necessarily like that. And that's pretty eye-opening for me, because like I said, I'm one of those people. I'm not going to lie and say that I haven't followed people like yourself and other people thinking, you're much further ahead than I am, and am I ever going to get there, whatever. And then yet on the inside, you're saying to yourself, I only feel like I'm 2 out of 10 rather than the 10 out of 10. And so that's interesting.
I'm a 1 out of 10, man.
I don't know about that. I mean, I've been following you in the way that things that you've shared and stuff. I'm pretty sure you're a little bit higher than that, and at least in my opinion.
Thank you,
Um,
man. That means a lot.
so would you say that at this point in your life, with your business, with everything you got going on, would you say that you found success and fulfillment in your life, or would you say that you're still on a journey towards it?
I think I'm always on a journey with discovering myself and becoming more successful. Um, we're actually in the process right now of really defining our mission and our 1, 3, and 10-year goals. But there's a lot more work to be done. I love what I do. I would definitely say I'm fulfilled. I do what I want with who I want, when I want. Uh, every single day, I'm excited to wake up. I'm happy. I'm healthy. I love my family. So I would say I'm I'm fulfilled, but from a success standpoint, I'm a very ambitious guy. My business partner is very ambitious as well. We're nowhere close to finishing the job. So fulfilled, yes. Success, nowhere where I need to be.
No, awesome. And
Yeah.
like and I find it interesting again, having about 30 podcasts recorded. Again, every person has a different way of looking at that. And I think you're the first one that's sort of broken them up and said yes to one and no to the other. Either people bunch them together and say no to everything, or they say yes to everything. So that's an interesting way to look at it, that you can have fulfillment in your life without being successful. Reminds me of a friend of mine who sort of says happiness equals success, not the other way around. Because a lot of people, I think, are confused and think that when you have the success and the money and the stature and all that you're going to be happy, but it's not necessarily true.
That is a problem that I've had my whole entire life that I'm actually proud of myself. I've actually, the last probably 4 to 6 months, I've completely resolved the problem. I used to be this guy, like, I'm not going to be happy until I get here. I'm not going to be happy until I sell the company. I'm not going to be happy until this and that. Fuck that, man. I'm very happy. I'm very happy right now. I love my life. So I think living in the moment and enjoying the journey is a very huge, huge thing that a lot of super ambitious entrepreneurs have a problem with. It's a problem that I had my whole entire life. There's obviously always another level, but if you keep waiting until you get to that next and next level until you're quote unquote happy, you're gonna live a fucking miserable life. Like, I used to literally just say no to everything. Like, no, I'm not going out. Like, no, I'm not going on this trip. Like, last night I went out on a Thursday and I drank alcohol. I very rarely do that, but it's my buddy that I've known for 15 years. He's in a little bit of a rut. He knew me when I was in a rut. I spoke to him last week and I wanted to be there for him. Last night we got drunk. We literally talked about his business for 5 hours. And I was a good friend, just like he would be a good friend to me. And I think that I gave him really good, sound advice. And he's going to be a better person, a better businessman today moving forward. That makes me feel good. So Yeah, I have a pretty rigid life, but I've learned to sometimes do things that maybe are outside of that structure because you fucking live once. So live your best life.
I was almost waiting to see if you said that, because the interesting part is the podcast that I recorded just before this was with a gentleman who created an app called We Croak that you basically, it sends you 5 quotes about death every day, so that there's a constant reminder. And so when you said you only live once and it's about not being so rigid, it was like, wow, could I not like have had two people come on today that sort of came to the same philosophy about life? I mean, his is obviously a little bit different considering the app that he created, but I couldn't agree more with what you said. Is, I even said to my dad recently, who is about to retire this year, he's always wanted to buy a Cadillac, and he's humming and hawing about it. And I'm like, just do it. Like, you've always wanted a Cadillac, go buy a Cadillac. Who cares? Like, you have the money, go buy it. And he's like, and I told him, I said, you can always make more money, but you can't make more time. And he goes, well, you're 30 years old. You can say that it's easy. You got a lot more life. And I said, you don't know that. I said, I could be gone next week. I could be gone next month. And nobody knows when they're going to go. So you can't just limit yourself because you think you don't have this amount of time or you don't have this amount of money. Like, do the things you want to do. And I understand that, Cadillac isn't the end all be all, but if it's something you've thought about since you were a kid and you're at a point in your life where you can, afford to have those luxuries, then in my opinion, go do it.
Yeah, for everybody listening, just go fucking do it, man. Just go do it.
100%. 100%. So I'm down to the last couple of questions here.
Yep.
This next one, basically, there's a lot of takeaways from this episode already. I mean, we've only been on this call for about 30 odd minutes or so, and you've given a ton of lessons that people can take if they were to sit and listen to it and take notes. But I like to give people 3 key takeaways from the guest journey that they can then apply to their own life and their own struggles and things that they're going through. So if you could give our listeners 3 key takeaways to take away from this, that'd be great.
3 takeaways. First takeaway, it's all in your head. You got to win inside before you win on the outside. Second thing, work hard. You can't win unless you work hard. Somebody tells you otherwise, they came from a rich family or won the lotto, they're full of shit. And then the third thing is watch what and who you consume, who you surround yourself with, who you listen to, what Instagram accounts you follow. I can't even tell you how many people in my life, I just cut them the fuck out of my life. Like, I had a buddy that I'm documenting my journey of just getting in better shape and caring about health and fitness. And he put an LOL on one of my stories because I documented it. I blocked him. I'll never talk to him ever again. You're dead to me. I don't care about you. You're gonna laugh because I am inspiring people to go get better. You're gonna laugh at me. You're a fucking joke, dude. Go fuck yourself. So yeah, be very wary of what you listen to and who you surround yourself. I actually think that is the most important of the 3, because those people will affect, number 2, how hard you'll work, and number 1, what you're thinking inside your head. So be very wary with who and what you consume.
I couldn't agree more. At the beginning of, I think it was, or halfway through last year, I honestly wasn't on Instagram till probably like midway through 2018. I just never saw a need for it. And then when I got on there originally, it was like just follow. And I had all these, different pages and this and that. And a lot of it was, the meme pages and the this and that for a good laugh or whatever. And then I realized, I'm like, A, I'm spending way too much time on here, and B, nothing that I'm doing on here or following on here is doing anything for me. And so I literally just went through like who I'm following. I deleted a bunch of accounts, and now I just focus on more of the people like yourself. Lewis Howes is a guy that I follow pretty consistently, and he's been his podcast has been helpful. Your podcast, is it out yet? Just because I do want to listen to it, but I haven't been able to find it. And
next week.
Okay, there you go. So
next week, for people listening, we're gonna fuck the whole game up.
It's one that I'm waiting for. It's one that I'm waiting for. I'm also waiting. I don't know. I guess you can see me on camera here, but there's a big blank wall behind me, and I'm looking to order the struggle. What is it? You guys have one that on your site?
Strength in the struggle.
Success is in the struggle. Yeah. And
I love it.
I want to put that on that wall behind me, because it's basically it's basically the subtitle of my podcast. And so I will be ordering it soon and get it over there. And I was hoping to have it on before you came on, but that didn't happen. So, but definitely want to get that, because there's that big blank space, and that one will help. Yeah. So again, last thing, not so much a question, but I like to give everybody who's coming on, and you sort of just did it, but do it again if you want. I like to give everybody an opportunity to sort of promote what they're up to, what's going on, what they've got coming up. So the floor is yours. Go ahead.
I would follow Ikonick, Ikonick, on all channels. My Instagram is Mark Brazil, Mark with a K, Brazil with a Z. My business partner, best artist in the world, Cole, Cole. I'd follow him. And then I would, my last thing would be revolved around bucket number 3. For anybody listening, what I would do is I would unfollow a ton of people and I would mute a ton of people. If you're going to take one thing away from this, guys, unfollow all the losers, all the bad energy, and mute the people. If you don't want to unfollow them, just mute them. And I can tell you right now, that'll be big. I mean, you got to unfollow people in real life and on the internet if you want to win. So that's my last piece of advice.
Awesome, man. Well, again, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it a ton. I appreciate, like I said, following you and everything that you're sharing online and everything that you shared here today. And one day if I ever make it out to LA, which I hopefully will, I hope that I can reach out and we can actually meet in person. Because, like I said, you've made a major shift in my life. I started following you because a friend of mine. I don't know if you Swish Goswami. He was part of the Dunk channel on Instagram for a while, and
Yeah.
he's posted on a story. I don't even know when it was, probably like a couple of years ago, and was like, or I guess not a couple of years ago because I haven't had Instagram that long, but nonetheless, he posted, he's like, follow these guys. I started following your company page, then I found you, and like I said, it's been a game changer for me already. And I know as I continue to follow you and I continue to work on myself, it's just going to help me with making those changes and shifts that I need to make to get to where I want to be. So appreciate you, man.
That means the world, man. Enjoy your weekend. And yeah, man, nice meeting you. We'll talk soon.
All right. Take care.
Peace.
Bye. Thank you for listening to the Vulnerable Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe and leave a review. It helps get the word out and means more than you know. You can also follow the podcast on Instagram at vulnerable.podcast or on Facebook and LinkedIn by searching Vulnerable Podcast. You can also follow me on Instagram at the B.E. Almeida. That's the BEALMEIDA, or by searching my name on Facebook and LinkedIn. If you know anyone with a great story of going from struggle to success, please let me know, as I would love to interview them for the show. I appreciate you taking the time to listen, and see you next week.